Hello and welcome back to the Inside Tack. We've got a slightly different vibe this week for you especially. As you know, we are a podcast that covers all things Athena racing. So we're covering the America's Cup, the Youth America's Cup, the Women's America's Cup. We also sit above the 1851 Trust, our charity. But excitingly as well, you know, we sit above with Athena Racing, our SailGP team. So we have got two of the main characters from the Emirates GBR SailGP team who have just come back from Canada. Now, I know what a lot of you would be thinking. You'll be like, oh, classic. They've done well in a regatta and they're going to come on here and talk about it. But just so you know, this has been scheduled in for a long time. And we're going to talk to Giles Scott, the helmsman, and Robbie Wilson, the coach, on the season so far, the transition for Giles coming in and helming, and the last four events, not just the last event where we had a good round. But lads, welcome. Thanks. Suitably branded with your T-shirts, peeled out of your INEOS Britannia tops and got your SailGP tops on. Yeah. Welcome along. Now, Giles, we've had you on before with our gold medal episode.
Yeah, good crack that was.
Good crack. Yeah, two of the most reluctant podders, but we are going to get you both. We're going to get you both very excited. And Robbie,
super keen.
You are the most reluctant podder. Danny Wilco, our kind of one of our marketing and comms leads, literally had to twist your arm to get you up here.
Very busy at the moment.
Fair, you are triple busy, and you featured a lot in our coaching pod with Chris Draper and Xavi Fernandez. Yeah. You got a lot of shout outs, but you obviously weren't on the pod because you were in Halifax, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were over in Halifax. Obviously that was a great event for the team, and super happy with that result. It's a difficult circuit though. You know, everyone says it, but it is true. You know, it's stadium racing, and you have got some of the best sailors in the world there.
Yeah.
And, you know, they've got differing amounts of time in the boat. You know, you've got like Slingers, who's been doing it for quite a while, you know, very established crew. And then you've got some newer teams as well that, you know, are learning super fast. You know, the French have done an amazing job. You know, they've been in it for a while now. But, you know, they got into it really quick. The Spanish recently, they've really ramped up. And then you've got, you know, some of them are the cup teams doing it, and then you've got other teams that, you know, aren't part of the cup at all, and you can just see, like, you know, people have different amounts of distractions, the amount of time that they can put into it.
Right.
And you get some of these young teams that's like super keen, they're putting so much time into it,
you can
and
see,
moving forward super quickly. And then you might have some other teams that have a little bit more going on in other areas with, for example, the cup.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how it kind of yo-yos depending on the events and depending on the conditions.
I tell you what, Robbie, for a reluctant podder, you've pretty much answered every question. I think we're done.
He wants to be in and out, doesn't he?
He wants to be in and out. Oh, Robs, I love it. I'm going to keep going with the coaching theme, as we heard with Chris and Xavi in last week's pods. The SailGP is in a one design boat, so all the boats are the same. So it's an absolute test of the sailing skill and how you read the data and how you transfer that data. Is it easier or harder to coach than something like building what we're doing here with the America's Cup team?
I'd say they're both super challenging. There's so many aspects to both the Cup side and SailGP. I wouldn't really say one's easier than the other. I guess the Cup side, you've got that added dimension with the big design team, performance team, where you're really developing the equipment.
And you are the performance team in SailGP along with the sailors?
Yeah. Like we have less support on the SailGP side, but they do have the shared services, you know, style support. That's led by sort of David Ray and Alex Reed. And, you know, they actually have quite a strong group there with SailGP. So if you need some sort of specific tasks looking at, they will dig into it for you. But it's also helpful if you can get on with it yourself and sort of explore what you want to dig into.
Right. Well, the reluctant podder's on a roll. We're just going to stop Robbie there. Giles, season 4. We're in season 4 of SailGP.
Yeah.
For people who haven't watched it, for me, it's the most unbelievable stadium racing we've ever seen. It's a really cool version of the sport. And your journey with SailGP, I know like 2-3 years ago, you had some conversations with Russell about getting involved early on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I did. When the circuit was starting up, actually, and initially I was involved and reluctantly decided that I was going to, focus in on the Olympics.
Reluctantly won a gold medal. Yeah, I get that.
I don't mean that. I mean I would love to be able to do everything, and
sure,
at the time I felt
you.
like I had to choose.
Can't do three things
I couldn't do three things well. Exactly that.
That was hard though, wasn't it?
It was real hard.
Cup, Olympics, and then this amazing opportunity with SailGP, and like you said, it was hard.
Yeah, it was a decision that took a long time to come to, and then for many months, years, there was question marks over whether it was the right call or not. But yeah, to be back involved in SailGP is amazing, and I'm very, very fortunate to have my nose back into it for sure.
And your involvement this year, as everyone knows, is you got dropped in mid-season into season 4, replacing Ben, who stepped away.
Yeah, reasonably big role to jump into for sure, and replacing someone like Ben is obviously something that comes with a certain amount of responsibility and expectation ultimately.
And doing it mid-season is quite an interesting one as well, isn't it?
Mid-season. Stepping in mid-season was tricky, and the way that I hate hiding, because you hear a lot in a lot of the press conferences and some of the other new teams that everyone's fighting time, and there are teams out there that are well established and have got multiple days and seasons. The Aussies being the prime example there, but competitively, you can't get away from that.
Yeah.
The season is what it is. The days are limited.
Right. So what do you mean by limited? Training days, right?
Training days are limited.
Right.
There's no F50 just sat on the docks. They're either racing or they're in containers being transported around the world. So you jump in and you have to maximise the little time that you get. But certainly my viewpoint on it is that you've just got to kind of grunt up and deal with the fact that you're behind on the learning slope, and you've got to try and accelerate your learning as quickly as possible, which has kind of been where we've tried to really focus our efforts. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there's been some pretty depressing events over the last 4, because it feels like we made good inroads, but then it hasn't quite come. So yeah, it's a journey, and as Rob said, the circuit is bloody hard.
Yeah, and you Rob, for you, like you've been working with Ben over the last decade, but specifically in SailGP and upskilling the group that Giles inherited for 4 seasons. And then how's it been from you, from a coaching point of view, leaving Ben stepping away on the helm and putting Giles into that? Like, it must have been a bit of a challenge, to be honest.
Yeah, it's you're definitely not starting from scratch, but you've got 2 different helms there with different amounts of time in the boat. So it's really focusing on sort of what's going to make the difference, what's going to get biggest bang for buck in the really limited time you've got training on the water.
Yeah.
And just being as efficient as you can, I think.
Yeah.
And then like different helms have slightly different ways of doing things, and also depending on where you are on the learning curve with the racing in the F50.
Yeah.
Means you have a different amount of bandwidth. Like, that was a biggie, wasn't it, to start with? So a lot of Giles's attention right at the outset was just sailing the boat and getting it around the course. Boat handling well, getting the boat fast, getting the mode side all dialed in.
The first 2 days in Sydney was
So paint the picture. What was the wind strength?
Sydney was my second event, right? Yeah.
Second event,
Yeah. So it's a second race
but
weekend.
first foiling event, wasn't it?
Second race weekend, but the first race weekend we drifted around with 2 holes in the water for the 4 days that we ended up sailing, 2 of those being racing, and then we turned up to Sydney. We were meant to go out on the Friday for practice racing, but that got cancelled
because of storms.
We got let out in the morning. And we went out on our own with the Germans, and we went onto the race course, and it was offshore, shifty, like 15 to 20 knots, and behind the driving around, which was all fine, and it's all good, but I got off the water that day kind of feeling like I wasn't really able to look past the front beam of the yacht.
Really? Okay.
And like, I've got to do this tomorrow with 10 other boats around. Like, I've got a bit on.
Yeah, okay. And is that a feeling that you shared with the squad, or did you internalise it, or talk to Robbie about it?
I think
you were pretty open, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, we all knew that was going to be the case, and that we were, I ultimately had quite a bit on for that weekend. But I mean, fortunately, over the next couple of events, like, it does feel like my bandwidth for racing is really growing, and I'm now in a position where the boat handling's not second nature, and it's not at the level of these other helms that have been doing it for multiple seasons. But I really feel like I'm able to race.
You're looking past the wheel now.
Looking past the front beam.
Looking past the front beam.
Yeah,
that's
that was like so early days, like the comms we were working on. We had to kind of take Giles out of the picture because just didn't have the bandwidth to get into the tactics and strategy. So that's been adjusting as you've got more comfortable with the boat as well, hasn't it? So it was very different from when Ben was there, but then I guess it's getting closer to how it was with Ben now as you get more comfortable in the boat.
Yeah, it was a tricky one for the whole crew to manage, because they're all obviously trying to help me out, but in helping out, sometimes it gets noisy and clouded, and then suddenly key comms aren't coming, and it's just a big noisy mess. But we're not there anymore, which is nice.
Yeah, and without pulling any punches, as you've alluded to, the first 3 events were frustrating for you, and you weren't where you wanted to be, but c'est la vie. And then I'll blow your own trumpet for you. You went and sailed really well in Canada, won the event. Robbie, what did you do? What did you recognise as the coach that went, okay, right now these guys are struggling. I need to look at this, and this, and get them focusing on this to help them get better. What were those things?
Well, I think it was kind of New Zealand. It definitely showed promise there.
Yeah,
it was still like it was the first sort of breezy one, and we were getting out the start line better there. There was still some, if there were some holes, weren't there, where it was like, God, we're not fully dialed in here. But I think we could sort of see the light. And then the event. What was the one before Canada? God.
Bermuda.
That's right. Yeah.
Where actually, you look at the places gained around the race course, and we were one of the leaders there. But obviously, that one was where the starts let us down, didn't it?
Yeah.
So pre-Canada, it was it was definitely quite a big start focus, and you can just see it. You're chipping away at all the different areas, at the straight line, the accuracy on the sort of targets, the boat handling, the consistency there. We kind of know where we want to get to, and it's just working on that consistency. And so it's kind of like drawing a line under where we're at, and sort of saying, like, it's good enough to win races. We're not the best in the fleet at every area yet, and we accept that, but it's good enough to win races. So let's just go out there and get our best foot forward and try and race well. Yeah, which I think is one thing we did do pretty well in Canada.
It was Bermuda. I came back from Bermuda dark.
You were in a filthy mood. Yeah,
I was super dark.
Yeah.
Because I knew that Bermuda we could have done quite well. Bermuda felt to me like it could have been the event where actually, these guys are on it, and Giles is up to it, sort of thing. And we went there and raced reasonably well. I started like an idiot, and again, that was off the back of New Zealand, where we'd had the crash, the penalty points, but we're sailing okay. So that to me felt like, right, okay, Bermuda's going to be the one where we can actually do all right. And then, I mean, fortunately, it kind of came in Canada.
Yeah,
but yeah, I was filthy after Bermuda.
Well, that's good, mate. You got to be. You can't be like,
I'm all right. And at myself, like,
and if you're
really
all right
at myself with that.
If you're all right with that performance, then you're not sitting here with an America's Cup team and helming a SailGP boat. That's for sure.
Yeah, frustrating flight back that was.
Yes, I can well imagine. And with Canada, you got to Canada. One thing that stood out to me is, Rob, you flew out with Giles a day early, and you got Ian Jensen, the goober, there a day early, and you kind of recognised the starts and the comms in the starts were an area that if you got that little tweak right, it could all fall into place. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, I'd say that was a big part of it. And we pretty much spent the whole day just looking through, I was going to say in the hotel room, and it was in the hotel room with Gooby and Giles, just looking through starts, the comms, the decision making, and just getting a bit of a plan in place, and it was quite nice because we looked at all this stuff. We had a lot of ideas, but the big part of that, I think, was distilling all these ideas down into a sort of simple set of rules.
It got very complicated, but fortunately by the end of the day we had a one-pager, so it was quite nice.
Which I think was part of the process, was to look at all the possibilities, make it super complicated, and then...
Yeah. Would have been nice if we could have got to the one-pager within an hour, but it took
I bet that was a lot of, I bet that was a lot of coffee / beers.
I think that was the process, though, wasn't it? And
it was
learning
good. Yeah, it was good.
in doing that.
Yeah, like the late great Andrew Simpson wrote on the side of his star, "Kiss, keep it simple, stupid."
Yeah.
And I think that when you're in those moments, to recognise that is a pretty powerful tool. And Giles, with Halifax, you obviously had your first day for me in SailGP is staying in the race, right? You can't have a bad Saturday.
Yeah.
And
fair.
just having a bunch of counters, staying in the race. And did you notice, at the end of Saturday, you were top of the leaderboard, but boy, oh boy, was it close behind you. You could have quite easily had a bad Sunday and finished 6th or 7th.
No, 8th.
Was it down to 8th?
Yeah, it was real tight.
It was all on.
Yeah.
And did you come off the water that day going, we've kind of cracked something a little bit here? You must have. No?
Well, no.
Okay.
I mean, obviously didn't come off the water kicking ourselves or kicking myself, but it was I don't know, as you say, you look at the leaderboard and you go, all right, this is all right, but we've got to nail it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only 5, you've got 5 races you've got to really, make the most of. And it's pretty rare to come through a Saturday and be, all good. We're going to be in the final on Sunday. I'd say that's pretty rare. Maybe it's happened. There's been a few occasions where a team's just absolutely smashed it out of the park and won 1 or 3 races that day. But yeah, that wasn't the case. It was still all on.
And did you feel when you made the final 3, did the pressure come off you a little bit? Because it's like, oh, here we go. Here's the step. I'm in the final. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I mean, I've only been in the one final, but I'd say it's certainly a nice step to make the final for any team. I think. Yeah. Because you see that there's multiple. I mean, those teams have obviously done pretty well and being very consistent. But yeah, you make a final that feels pretty good. And then it's taking your chances, sailing well, and maybe we relaxed a little bit, but it's pretty hard to relax in 18 to 25 knots or however many K it was, 30 to 40 K an hour.
Race 5, the last fleet race, there was a particularly windy top reach. I remember that. That was all on. Worth a look. For anyone who hasn't seen it, go to race 5 on that Sunday. That's a sporty one. I enjoyed that as a fan. And Robs, we'll finish up with you just before we get a look forward just to the final end of the season. I presume now with SailGP, you're coaching from the shore.
Yeah.
And you can communicate with the boat. So you're claiming the win as a tactician. I presume you're
yeah,
telling
yeah,
Giles
yeah.
when to tack and all of that stuff.
Yeah, all of that stuff. He doesn't have to think. That was a big change.
It's like remote control yachting for you.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, Rob, that's a step change, isn't it?
Yeah, like I think honestly now, if you had the choice between coaching on the water for those events or on the shore, you'd always go for the shore because you have the umpire app. So you have a very clear overview of exactly what's going on the race course, and then you also have the tactical software that these guys have. Plus, you've got like 12 video feeds from helicopters to the live TV feed, bow camera, stern camera, so you can see so much more from the coach booth, and you've got all the data you could look at. I think that the hardest thing is when to feedback and chime into the boat and when to sort of hold off. Like I'll generally kind of hold off as much as possible because there's so much information to get across just in the boat, taking the coach out of it. But it's I think, and that's where you've got to be pretty on it with your processes on the comms as to what information's important and when. Some teams are saying, "Oh, the coach does it all from the booth." I haven't heard that. Seen that, yeah. But definitely the booth has different amounts of inputs on different teams, and we've got a strong team on the water that they can pick everything up. But it's just you've got to do your job really well. And I think if you can ease the pressure off one or two of the sailors by inputting from the booth, when you're not having to sail the boat at 100 kilometres an hour and have the luxury of just being sat in a booth, then I think that helps them to do their job better.
Well, I for one miss you coming alongside in the rib, jumping on with a little clipboard and a can of Diet Coke and running around like something else. So.
That is the one thing I think sail trim feedback is obviously one thing you can't do from the booth,
because you can't line up perfectly behind the yacht and see the profiles.
Okay. So the wing's fine because you got all the information on that, but you can't feedback anything on the jib trim. But then also that face-to-face contact between races is definitely missing. But I think that you make up for that from the rest of the information you have.
But in SailGP world, it's that window's only 2 minutes anyway, isn't it? It's quick fire.
Yeah. Right, lads. I know you're triple. In fact, you're both triple busy. You're so busy that actually in a few days you jump on a plane to go to New York for the 22nd and 23rd SailGP in New York.
Yeah.
And then that's the penultimate event, and then the grand finale in San Francisco. So season 4 is wrapping up pretty quickly, whilst getting your air miles, flying back to Barcelona, coaching the America's Cup team, helming the America's Cup team. Some busy boys.
Yeah.
So we appreciate your time, lads. Thank you for a really honest update on Giles, you stepping in season 4, struggling a bit, and then the learnings that you got to go and win. That was cool. Everyone here was buzzing for you. I'm sure all the fans at home were buzzing. And the reluctant podder, Rob Wilson. We finally got him in the podcast studio.
Yeah, love it.
And let rip, and you couldn't shut him up.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't stop talking for 5 minutes. Anyway, lads, you're absolute legends, and we will speak to you at the end of the season. I'm sure Robbie will get you back in. I know you don't.
For sure, you will.
Very good. And as
I'll
always,
look forward to it.
Yeah, thanks, mate. And as always, follow this time the Emirates GBR SailGP Team on the social medias. They have really fun and youthful and funky social media. So get in, follow the guys in their last 2 events. Obviously, like and subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you next time on the Inside Tack.